Hello there. Today, I'll be telling you all about the wonderful geographical history that surrounds our province of Ontario. So, soon we're going to take a look at some of the basic history of how this great province came to be, but before we dive into that, let's see what Ontario looks like today. Ontario is located in central Canada, neighboring a border with Quebec, Manitoba, and a couple of US states. It also happens to be on the edge of 4 of the 5 Great Lakes, as well as both the Hudson and James Bay. It also happens to be home to over 50 cities, including Toronto, the most visited city by tourists in Canada, and Ottawa, the capital city of Canada and where Justin Trudeau currently resides, which undoubtedly makes this the coolest province out of them all. It also happens to be the bearer of beautiful scenery, with serene mountain ranges and luscious forests. Not where I live, of course, but I'm sure it exists out there somewhere. Probably. But anyway, let's get started on the history of Ontario. Canada was initially founded and colonized in the 16th century by European explorers, and along with Ontario gained independence in 1867. This makes Canada a relatively young country, but that doesn't mean that it lacks culture or history. Geologically, Canada was formed from the collisions of tectonic plates, with each region being formed slightly differently, so we're going to have to talk about Ontario's landform regions. Canada's land is divided into 7 distinct landform regions, which are categorized based on factors of the surrounding landforms and Earth, including age, rock types, biological influence, and more. The regions which directly cover Ontario are the Canadian Shield, stretching across the majority of central Ontario, which is the oldest region in Canada, containing rocks up to 4 billion years old. It was formed from the first collisions of tectonic plates, which also formed the rest of North America. On the coast of Hudson Bay are the Hudson Bay lowlands, made similarly to the Shield. The area is largely low-lying and flat, with many sedimentary rocks covering the surface. And finally, the St. Lawrence lowlands, which accompany the southernmost region, where we live. This was actually made in the same way as the lowlands, meaning it contains the same layers of sedimentary rocks. Depending on which region you're in, the physical geography of the landforms, soil and vegetation will differ drastically. For example, in the Canadian Shield, the oldest and largest landform region in Canada, you can see that most of the terrain has become subject to extreme erosion, with many roundish hills and peaks, perfect for hiking. The soil is either extremely dense, coarse, or frozen, so it cannot support agriculture. Because this is the majority of the land in Ontario, the farming industry here is little to none. But due to the high number of boreal forests, is home to a large timber industry, housing over 50 different species of trees, and contains beautiful forest scenery. Both the Hudson Bay and St. Lawrence lowlands are sculpted by their nearby bodies of water, with the Hudson Bay lowlands being formed by receding ice, and the St. Lawrence lowlands being formed from superficial deposits left by ice sheets, both created during the last ice age. The St. Lawrence lowlands is home to mixed wood forest in the north, and deciduous forests in the south, while the Hudson Bay lowlands contain boreal forests in the south, and some tundra vegetation in the north. Canada also happens to be divided into 8 major climate regions, which dictate the weather patterns of those particular regions, affecting average temperature, precipitation, humidity, etc. The regions which are in Ontario are the Taiga region in the north, which usually has long, cold winters with more precipitation than the summers. The southeastern region has a wide range of temperatures, with somewhat of a maritime climate due to the nearby lakes, making for moderate temperatures year-round. And finally the boreal region in the center, which has a continental climate, being humid in the summer, cold in the winter, and dry all seasons. Now let's take a look at how low Earth affects Ontario's climate. Being in the southernmost portion of Canada, it happens to be the mildest when it comes to weather patterns, with reasonable summers and winters. And it isn't directly bordering any of the 3 oceans surrounding Canada. However, it does happen to be next to the Hudson and James Bay, which are. However, the effects and the current at this location aren't very significant, due to how far they have to travel in such narrow spaces. Again, being at the very center of the country means the only air mass that has an effect on it is the continental polar air mass, which spans across all of Canada. But even this air mass has minimal effects in the lower parts of Ontario, again due to it being so south compared to the rest of Canada. And much like the rest of central Canada, Ontario lacks a lot of variation in elevation. Pretty much all of central Ontario resides within the 200-500 meter range. For relief, Ontario actually receives a reasonable amount of precipitation, due to the air masses picking up water vapor from the Great Lakes and bays. This means high precipitation in the spring and winter months, if you include snowfall. However, there are no windward or leeward areas, again due to lack of elevation. Finally, due to the nearby water sources, the nearby areas are cooled in the summer and warmed in the winter, again making a mild climate year-round. So, if you're not a fan of extreme weather, then Ontario is probably one of the best provinces to visit. Because of the way the climate affects the region, we have fairly standard weather year-round. The winters are cold, but not freezing. The summers are hot but not unbearable, and we receive a fairly normal amount of precipitation and snowfall, a real solid A-tier province. And in terms of culture, it is extremely diverse. Being the #1 spot of immigration in Canada, going in any large city in southern Ontario means being able to interact with dozens of different communities containing different cultures, as Ontario is extremely racially diverse. In fact, only 32% of the Canadian population is natively Canadian, which for us means a wide range of experiences to explore. So with all that being said, Ontario is a province with a rich history and amazing landscape, and I hope I was able to teach you a little bit about it. Thanks for listening.